About 12 hours ago, Spirit Airlines effectively ceased operations for good. If you had a flight booked today, tomorrow, next week, no, you don't. That ticket is functionally worthless. The route is gone. And this isn't just an inconvenience. I'm Nate Charles, and welcome back to the Rule of Law Brief. If you relied on Spirit for business travel, that option just disappeared. If you use them to maintain long distance relationships, visit family, or take affordable vacations, that infrastructure is gone. And if you work for Spirit Airlines, I'm sorry, but you are out of a job. The thing is, airlines don't just collapse randomly. There's a structure to it. Fuel is one of the single largest costs in aviation. Depending on the market, it accounts for roughly 25% to 30% of an airline's total operating expenses. And in extreme conditions, it can climb to as high as 40%. That's not a rounding error. That is the difference between profit and collapse. And low-cost airlines like Spirit, they're even more exposed. They operate on razor-thin margin. Their entire business model depends on keeping prices low and planes full. They don't have the pricing power to just pass cost increases on to customers the way that the legacy airlines can. So when fuel prices spike, they get squeezed from both sides. Their costs go up, but they can't raise fares fast enough to compensate. Now, layer in just basic market volatility. Jet fuel prices are notoriously unstable. We've seen price increases approaching 90% in short time frame. When that kind of shock hits an airline where fuel already represents a quarter of their total costs, it's not just painful, it is destabilizing to the entire business model. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. Fuel prices have doubled, in some cases tripled in just a matter of weeks. For a carrier like Spirit, that kind of increase doesn't just hurt margins, it wipes them out entirely. Reporting on Spirit's financial situation shows that rising fuel costs alone added hundreds of millions of dollars in additional expenses. For a company already operating on thin margins, that kind of pressure can and did break the system. And this didn't happen in a vacuum, obviously. Major geopolitical decisions, particularly ones that disrupt global energy markets, have downstream effects. When you destabilize energy supply, you increase fuel costs. When fuel costs spike, transportation systems absorb the shock. And the weakest players, like low-cost air carriers, tend to go first. And there are second and even third order effects to this. For instance, I run a national practice. I have clients all over the country. I also happen to maintain a long-distance marriage. The bulk of my business is on the East Coast, and my wife and her children live in Nashville, Tennessee. Budget airlines like Spirit aren't a luxury for me. They are critical infrastructure to me. And at least one of those budget carriers is now gone. Multiply similar stories across millions of Americans who rely on low-cost carriers, and you start to see the scale of the impact. Why did these prices spike? Donald Trump. Donald Trump. It doesn't get any more complex than that. Donald Trump started a war with Iran on entirely spurious grounds. Iran has had a nuclear weapons development program for decades, but they were still years, if not decades more away from having a deliverable nuclear device. There's very little question about that. The intelligence is pretty well thought out. He picked a fight to distract from the Epstein files, and because, in his vast ignorance of how national security actually works, he thought he was going to get an easy win to make him look good to his base. But of course, he's an idiot. And not only did he start an unnecessary war, he started a war where it was plainly foreseeable it would cause a global disruption to the energy markets. This is neither ambiguous nor even difficult to understand. Donald Trump just killed Spirit Airlines, and the other low-cost carriers might go next. That is bound to have second and third order effects in the national and international economies. So once again, everyday Americans are paying the price for Donald Trump's stupidity.